Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 73rd episode of Book of Hours, our first run through YouTube. I am getting close to the end of my Twitch playthrough, I think. There's going to be a little bit of a question in terms of how many more books I want to read, but I do sort of think I'm getting to a point where there may be some diminishing returns by extending the period. Or the stay, because of course there are other runs that we can do. But we're not focusing on that run, we're focusing on our YouTube run today, and I need a second to reacquaint myself. I also wanted to do a small little bit of housekeeping, just to let people know where things are with Book of Hours in general. I think this should be basically the week before Christmas that this is coming out, so I know that it may be a bit of a stressful time for everyone, just in terms of getting things ready to go. I hope that is not the case, or at the very least that this can give you a little bit of an island of solace, if only for half an hour today. And this lovely music that you are listening to is one of the items in the Advent calendar that Weather Factory have been doing. So throughout December, there have been a number of announcements for the game. One of the big announcements last week was the first expansion for the game, House of Light, which will be dealing with the Lighthouse Institute, which I am personally very interested in. But the big one, and I think this is one that a lot of people were looking forward to, was the release of the Book of Hours soundtrack. And this would be on Steam, which currently enjoys a 10% discount. Obviously at the time of this recording, so please take the Steam page as the authority on that. I believe it is also available on GOG, and if you subscribe to some of the various music sites, I use Apple Music, but apparently it is also available on Spotify as well. You can also use those services. Of course, if you want to own the soundtrack, then chances are you'd want to get it through those two different sites. And I believe you can actually buy it separately if for whatever reason the game's not for you. But this is probably my favorite soundtrack that I've heard in terms of the collaboration between I'll say Alexis Kennedy specifically and Mickey Mar Productions, because I know Lottie was attached to some of the Fail Better projects, but not from the very start. I believe her first producer credit at Fail Better was Mariner. But in any case, I do think Maribeth Solomon has done wonderful music for all of the games as part of that collaboration. But I really do think that Book of Hours is a really, really special one, and it is one that I've been enjoying over and over again since it was released. So anyways, there's a little bit of public service for those of you who may not know about the soundtrack. There have also been a couple of other announcements over the course of the Advent calendar, but usually lately it's been relating to some projects that will be released in 2024. They all look very good, but I can leave it to your own investigations to find out what's going on there. So we are currently upgrading Sacra Lamea. I believe I had a note saying that I will be reading or seeing Sedona Not Yet. So I think it's Sedona Not Yet again at night, and to hear those voices in terms of investigating Allopolis Nook. And then I think we still have some books to read. We certainly have plenty of time left in summer. So this seems like we'll have a pretty full day tomorrow, which is good. I know it's a little tedious to watch a YouTube video and have the first bit just lots of preamble and all of that. But in this case, it is a little helpful for me to be able to figure out everything that's going on in the playthrough. It's also very interesting to play as the artist. I think probably there are definitely some legacies I'm very interested in, but I do think that the Twiceborn is probably the most aligned with sort of my personal interests and values, which probably says terrible things about my ego, but I don't know, there's something very interesting about it. Sacra Lamea, the rites of an order of immortals who have tried to remain apart. These rites touch on secrets of Hours of the Mansis, chiefly gods who were flesh and gods from light. All right, let's let the evening work its way through, and then we'll sort out a game plan. I can also probably save a memory. Let's just take a quick second and sort that out. No, it looks like I'm already saving some gossip. I don't exactly have a full strategy yet. I know I set aside a few books, and I think I rearranged the Watchman's Tower. All right, Oriflammes, the messenger awaiting her destination. Now, this is a 16 Forge VAC text. It's also one that I simply can't afford, so no major hardship there. There are a couple things that are pushing against it. So first of all, VAC is not in my list of languages that I know yet. On top of that, 16 Forge is quite unlikely for me to be able to read. So while I normally want to be able to buy, as many books as I can, there's a lot of books in the game. So while it does say that you can potentially get them again, the fact of the matter is that unless you play for a very long time, you really, I think, as far as I can tell, you only get one sort of offer from Oriflammes at a time. So unless you are sort of swimming in Spintria, you do sort of, there is that heart-stopping moment where there's a book that you really want and you can't afford it. But then again, I mean, I'm not sure how the books are distributed to this random event anyway. So maybe I'm a little overly concerned. All right, so we're still working on the Worm-Eaten Hall. If I wanted 12 Forge, 12 Heart, or 12 Forge, 12 Knock, both of those are potential options. I haven't really been thinking that much about what I might do with Denzel or Reverend Timothy. Let's think a little bit more about what books I want to be reading. So we've got Nin's Cages. So with Inks of Containment and Whist, that would take me up to 7. So I can only get 9. Okay, so oh no, hang on. 9, and then we almost certainly get some Winter from Ericapaean. That's right, so we get 10. So I would need a memory off of that. But that's not a terrible hardship. Now, the Book of Masks, I think we can handle this, but it is going to be a little bit of a journey. So we've got the Tryst, which we add to Edict's Liminal, so that brings us up to 11. With that 11, we would add a memory, right, and then we would add the shears. Okay, so I suppose the question now would be, do I want to try the Book of Masks, or do I want to try Nin's Cages? Both of them would require a memory, which I don't think... again, that's not the worst thing that could happen to me. But the question would be, what's the best use of my time? What's the best use of my elements of the soul today? The weather would probably tell me that, although I don't think... So unless it snows or unless we get... I can't remember. I actually don't think we get moth from fog. Yeah, so it's actually fairly unlikely that we're going to get weather that helps us out here. So an impulse is probably the best thing for me to work with, and then we move forward from there. I'm not opposed to using the Arab. So yeah, let's use the Arab as is. I won't worry too much about any remaining areas in the house. Maybe I'll unlock more, we'll see. But in this case here, let's focus a little bit more on the books that we can read, because we still have plenty of time in the season to go. And then at some point I want to tame the wild viper. Actually, I guess we can do that with the chickens. Not in the way you think, but yeah, we'll take care of our little snake friend. Okay, but first things first, let's get the impulse taken care of. And I know we had sort of 2 shelves dedicated to this stuff now. So let's read the Green Jasper Tablet. Unless, actually, you know what? Damascene Traditions of the House of Leith. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, that's going to get me the impulse with which I will read this moth text. I could actually go even further and just try and read the winter. You know what? Let's read Nin's Cages as well. So I can take the regret or I can take the hindsight. I think I'll go for the hindsight. Now that one, I want to try and be a little thoughtful in terms of how I go about this. The Arab still doesn't get me a whole lot, so let's try and find an edgy desk to read that at. We've got 7 shards. The world does not weep. The hissing key or Ettery after. Let's read 7 shards. Okay, so that means, yeah, the Tristan the Whist are set aside on the bottom here. Let's get some vegetables. So nourishing vegetables in summer and autumn. And we can talk to Terence the chicken or Tuppence the other chicken. Let's start with Terence. Terence the chicken was this magnificent and indomitable beast named for the rector's indomitable and magnificent housekeeper? Best not to inquire too closely. Alright, so let's, oh, I don't even know what I want to apply here. Let's go for Fost. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. And then I'm also going to make a bit of money today. Fixing and mending. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. So one thing I've done to potentially hamper my efforts here is I've used up a lot of elements of the soul at a time when I'm going to be reading a couple of books that will be asking me to use some elements of the soul to level things up. So it turns out there is a moth weather item, but it's not too important for me. Okay, we've got some books to catalog, which is good. The jail hall. Here the guards and the prisoners would take their meals. Sometimes callers too would descend from his tower and discuss philosophy with poisoners, ethics with Antians, theology with Abites. Afterwards, he would generally burn his notes. So we can go to the Wormnod Kitchen. Now that's another winter one we can work with, although Grail also helps us out with Mrs. Kill. I don't have a big Grail drink to give Mrs. Kill right now, unlike the winter for Mr. Kill. However, I do have the higher level Arab to give Mrs. Kill, so I'll probably have a bit of a think about those two. But you know what? Because we've got 4 books to work with already, I'll maybe just chill out a little bit on. I'll chill out a little bit on what we're going to be unlocking in the Cougar bit. It's interesting, and I want to keep doing that, but I have a few things to take care of in terms of the various books that I've already got and some of the things that I can level up. So I don't want to rush my efforts to. I don't want to rush like going through the house just because there's simply other things that I can be doing right now. Although on the other hand, I don't want to drag my feet either. One thing that might be of interest to people on Friday's video, the one that I did on Twitch, I actually discovered, so some people had asked the question, is there a way to get more tea? And the original answer that I gave was, you can go, I think this actually might have been on a live broadcast that somebody asked this. I said, sometimes there will be items that wash up on Crowcross Sands, and that's the way that you get something. And it looks like, in addition to TRN, there's a order form for that, but there's also now a Cater and Hero order form. I'm not quite sure when it shows up. It might be autumn, but in any case, there is now an option to exchange money for tea. So it's also very helpful in terms of getting more metal, because I've tended to find that metal is fairly scarce in Hush House. I do have a couple of ways of getting around that, but it's just nice to have the option in terms of experimentation. All right, time with the beastie, and now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Resentful Terence. Cluck, cluck. And we got a hen's egg for that. So I'll be following up on that when I can. Fixing and mending. As they used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So we're going to be spending quite a bit of money getting these elements of the soul back, but that's part of the plan. I should probably make a decision on this Viper, whether or not I want to I mean, I can make it tame right now. Let's maybe save that for any remaining elements of the soul for today, because I may want to use it for some other things. We have got the 7 shards. The lionsmith, one of the 2 great hours of struggle, broke his sword into 7 shards. Natalia Brulot, 5th librarian of Hush House, describes the nature of each of those shards, allegorically and otherwise. The 3rd shard has been identified with the cry of pain. The lionsmith is a stoic hour, but we must assume that in the sundering moment, even he might have been unable to restrain his distress. Now the sound of tin under pressure we call the tin cry, a reason perhaps for further identification of the 3rd shard as the shard royal. The 7th shard we call informally the invincible audacity, which is struck from the winning move as the winning move is struck from a memory with the application of sufficient edge. So that's definitely a recipe there. And then at Ava's desk, Damascene traditions of the House of Leith. The House of Leith was an order of immortals who sought obscurity, rejecting their past and future. If the author of this short text is to be believed, the initiates of the Damascene branch were much more radical than their fellows elsewhere. The house generally forbade any potentially procreative activities for fear of the terrible consequences of too long bearing a child. The Damascene order took this much further. At one point, male initiates were required to undergo castration and female initiates to strangle any children they had previously borne. These measures were so horrific that the order was shaken by repeated schisms and eventually absorbed into the local sisterhood of the knot as a society of healers and exorcists. Okay, so we're going to translate these into reading opportunities. So we are going to read Nin's Cages, the Bruges text with pop-up illustrations. And with that, we will combine Inks of Containment, my highest level Winter. I can master this mystery, enough Winter to match Mystery Winter. Now, it's my choice between Book of Masks or Inem Capingling per Garki Krippus, which I'm going to go for the Book of Masks just because that doesn't force me to stumble over my words as much. Also, the Vagabond is just interesting. So Edict's Liminal, and then we're still 1 short, so we add the Shears of the Sisterhood for the final element. I can master this mystery, enough Moth to match Mystery Moth. And with this, we wait... Actually, the one part that's going to be a problem here is that we're going to cross the halfway point of the day. So if I want to use Crowcross Sands or anything else... You know what? I think we'll maybe just skip the exploration today. Or at the very least, we'll see where we're at before I commit anything. Oh, hang on. I probably paused it, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah, so I know I know it's not the most exciting thing for me to do, but I think for today, I'm going to wait and see what those books ask of me. I will still take the opportunity to... Carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. Yeah, what I'm going to do here is wait to see what I need in terms of elements of the soul. Anything that we have left over, I'll use to sort of pacify various animals, and then, hopefully get the levels and such. We don't have anything that we immediately need in the summer, so we're in pretty good shape there. And I'm thinking maybe what I can do tomorrow, either I will have a memory that I can use to read this text, or at the very least that can be a sort of a point of focus for us. Better now. Okay, so in this case we're just going to bring back anything that we can make some money with. It is summer and I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones eating crumbly cheese in nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. So you can sort of see here what the pattern is, right? I first get one of each of the elements of the soul that I can, that I might potentially be called on to use. The exception right now has been Arab, and that's just because Arab can't be turned back into money. So maybe at the very end I'll do that, but I kind of prefer to save that one for later. in retrospect, it might have been smarter for me to bring in Mrs. Kill to generate a whole bunch of memories. Because we don't have that much time left in the day once the books are done. But we'll kind of see where everything's sitting, and then, we can decide what's realistic. And in the end too, right, if I don't get everything done in one go, all that I'm really missing out on are the memories that come out of the book. Oriflams, thanks you for your continued interest. The book may become available for purchase again later. Okay, so Nin's Cages, the Bruges text, illuminated. The merciful measures of the witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil, Mabelie of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Mabelie clearly enjoyed drawing both devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against evoking the edicts liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. Mabelie has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window, about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. So this is one that's caused me a little bit of trouble in the other playthrough, because it's very clear when it's talking about edicts liminal and inviolable before sleep, but whenever I try to use it in bed on its own, it's not actually doing anything. And the game is starting to recommend against trying to craft in bed. Now, I don't think this is a mistake. I think there may still be something about using those in bed, but I haven't quite cracked that yet. So that's a kind of an open mystery across both playthroughs. We've got Quenchings and Quellings, so that's generally good, I think. That's been a reasonably powerful... Yeah, I mean, in the end, we're probably just bringing this up to the level of winter that our existing skill has. So 5 and... no, that'll actually take it up to 6. But this does mean I'm going to have to put some work in to level this up as well. And we do get a hindsight, so we can shelve that right beside the other source of hindsight. So maybe we're going to need to find a source of heart and one more winter, or some combination of the two. We need 3 memories in total for this. But we do also have our other text. And this one is the Book of Masks, Athena Vanna's work on the rogue hour called the Vagabond, who is also known as the Laughing Thrush, the Centipede, the Pilgrim, and by many other names, or as Vanna has it, Masks. The Mask of the Laughing Thrush, says Athena Vanna, has a great friendship with the sun and splendor, the highmost hour of the Mansus, now divided and departed. The Mask of the Sight Thief painted the river in the Mansus. The Mask of the Vagabond was forbidden the Mansus, not for what she had done, but for what would occur. The Mask of the Centipede recalled her birthplace, Maya, which had punished her for creeping into the temple precinct. This mask cursed Maya to drink only dust and be remembered only by the wind. For not beneath any mask does she forgive, and the centipede's hunger is not to be forgotten. So weaving and not working for that one. And an impulse. Okay, so we're getting all the all the memories that we employed to read the books back. Not intentional, but nice to know. So let's think about what we're up against. We actually basically have the same problem. So weaving and not working is a heart, as is Quenchings and Quellings. So in both of these cases, I would want some kind of heart memory. Now, I suppose the one advantage that I have here is with weaving and not working, I just need the one. I just need the one extra memory with Moth or Heart, whereas with Quenchings and Quellings, I need 2. So let's start by clearing out weaving and not working. In this case, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to see what else I can do with my elements of the soul for the rest of the day. So if I set aside 1 to generate a memory for weaving and not working, let's say that will be metal. Now, technically I just need 2 for quenchings and quellings. That leaves me the health. Okay, no, I know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to the moor. This is the, I'm hoping here for the Lignum Vitae Blanc. We'll use strings and sun. No. Sky Stories. The wind's almost warm. Okay, so let's get some... Okay, so actually, first question. Where am I going to get this moth? Well, it's moth or heart, so in this case, probably my best bet is just to go for a solace. And I should be happy. Let's do Orchid Transfigurations on this one. Okay, so that'll be the one that covers us for weaving and not working. Now I'm going to need to restore the whist. Oh, did I read this wrong? Yeah, I could have saved myself a little bit more trouble if I had been thinking about it. Well, I still think using the rose on the moor was correct. So I can actually use the health with quenchings and quellings, but I do need to find another memory. Although I guess I'm getting that back at the Sweet Bones. You know what? That's not that big of a deal. So we'll start by getting a regret. We can read any of the ones up here. Let's do the Fallen Cross. Okay, so that's a winter, so I need one more winter or heart, and I can't use hindsight. So I think storm is probably the most appropriate here. And for that, let's read what does not bark, because let's face it, Calyptra is kind of interesting. Unless I want to wait. You know what? I'll wait the 1 second. Okay. So the health and the core are set aside for leveling up both quenchings and quellings and weaving and not working. Now I do still have a little time left in the day, so it's my choice now to use either the egg, the sack of vegetables, to bring back one of the beasties. Alternatively, I can use one of the elements of the soul to catalog a nocturnal book, or I could use it to examine one of the paintings in Alopolis Nook. I think what I'm going to do, I am going to bring back an element of the soul, but I am going to use it to catalog a book. So it is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese in nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. The main justification for that, in my mind at least, is that if I figure out what these books are, then that's going to mean that I can sort of plan the next few turns accordingly. Another thing that might have been an idea would be to use the element of the soul to bring something like an impulse back, so that I could, I could get an early start on reading the other text. But we're going to have our hands full leveling up, weaving and not working, and quenchings and quellings anyway. So I'm not too fussed about, trying to preserve memories overnight. We can still preserve the gossip. Not that it's really going to do anything. Although I do have an opportunity to renew one more element of the soul as long as I use it overnight. So I might want to have a quick think about that. Okay, so what do I get from each of these individual choices? I don't quite see a justification for bringing back anything for the sweet bones. I mean, I could maybe try the core because it only takes 30 seconds to level up one of these skills. But then I would need to make sure that I'm not eating one of my existing memories. There's a way around that, though. And actually, I can also catalog. Okay, I've convinced myself. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start with... We want to eat the impulse in this case. So we're going to go for weaving and knot work. In fact, we can also work out the spacing for everything. So weaving and knot working and quenchings and quellings are going to be moved up. Would be helpful if I got the memories first. Okay. So, what does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law or principle or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? So there's a storm for us to work with. Next up, we've got the Orchid Transfiguration's Noon, the third volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end and the protections they use against those ends. But we must use the knife, said the lion-throned one, the noose, the flame, the waking word, against those who have passed the three-valve door, and so none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun. So, solace for us to work with. And finally, The Fallen Cross, in which Julian Cosley, magus, immortal, occasional anarchist, argues that through language the Carapace Cross decayed to seed the lives of our ancestors. Speech is a wound, silence is silver. There is no silver door, nor can there be, even in the moon's house. Without language there can be no words. Without words there can be no message. But only in silence can there be no error. And lo, even in that beginning, in that first of messages and error, thus did we enter the house. Okay. So, again, it's a little bit of a delicate operation here, but I think we have this well in hand. So if I take my weaving and knot if we take weaving and knot working, so we can add the lesson here. We can put either core, whist, or health. It doesn't really matter which we use, so I'll use the health in this case. We add the impulse, the clouds, the solace. So another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. So let's think a little bit about what element of the soul we're restoring. So we're bringing back a core here, and that core is going to be used for quenchings and quellings. I have 2 elements of the soul here. Now, one of the first things that I'm going to do is earn myself an impulse so that I can read Inem, Keping, Gingling, Purarchy, and Crippus. So for that, let's go to Natan's desk. We will pick an impulse. We really have our choice here. So let's do Kittling Ripe and the Moldy Warp's Grave. Moth Consequence. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, what I should have thought about, and this may come back to bite me, we are good. Okay, so we don't need to worry about the gossip. In this case, I can use the workstation without a problem. And then it doesn't really matter, I suppose, if I use the whist for cataloging or the core. I'd actually prefer to use the core. So what we'll do is we will catalog a book with the whist, and then we'll use the core for the quenchings and quellings. And then we'll have a head start on weaving and knot working, and then we'll kind of take we'll sort out the rest of the day as time goes by. I'm kind of conscious of the fact that I have some time. I'm already at the time for the episode, but I do want to wrap up the day properly. Just, it's not even for memory, but in this case, it just feels a little bit nicer to sort of have everything wrapped up at the right time. Okay, so the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Where did I... Oh, this is probably the more... Alright, a vase of gore says, Cornish a plant as any, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So we'll find a place to put that later. Now what I want to do is catalog one of these nocturnal books. Some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's nocturnal period, after the turn of the century. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Books from this period are almost never contaminated. Alright, so we've got a few seconds to figure out where we want to put the flowers. Well, don't know if it... the plant. My favorite usually is to put it down on a shelf which I made empty, although it's a little bit of a challenge because I've been running around sticking plants where they don't belong. Okay, so we'll put it on the table here. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. Now this is an interesting one. Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1928, so that as the companion to this one. This actually also has some interesting information. Now, I don't know how realistic it is for me to read a 12 scale text. I think Coil and Chasm is my best one here. Yeah, so it's all 4s. So we get 5 with the element of the soul, and the old moment, maybe we get 3, but that's still a far cry from the 12. So I'm going to put that... This isn't a very good organization, but we're just going to set that aside. It's also not cursed, so that's good news for me there. We're done at the Sweet Bones. Better now. And what's the other thing that I missed out on? Oh yes, my memory. So, Kittling Ripe and the Moldywarp's Grave and Other Stories, a lusciously illustrated tome of loosely connected children's stories. Few of them are remotely suitable for children. The protagonist, a speechless cat thing called Kittling Ripe, performs a series of elaborate rites to rescue members of her extended family, culminating in the resurrection of her other grandmother, Moldywarp. When the Snake Witch killed the horse, Kittling snatched one of its eyes. When the Dry Witch killed the pig, Kittling stole a cup of its blood. Then she took them to the place Moldywarp lay buried, and she shook out her hair, and she began to dance. Okay. So, we will have a little bit of a lead-in tomorrow as the night resolves itself, but we're going to dream on the impulse. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. We're going to take the core, and we're going to use that to level up Quenchings and Quellings. Hindsight, the Regret, and the Storm. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. So what this is going to do for the rest of the week, I am setting myself up for a little bit of stress just because I'm going to have a third book that's read that could potentially give me, I would suspect two lessons based on what we got from these others. But of course, I'm going to need to generate 4 memories for Quenchings and Quellings and for Weaving and Not Working. So I'm going to need to generate 8 memories on top of whatever I need for this. So that's not... And then, of course, I also have my Elements of the Soul to try and tame the Wild Viper and the Chicken. So I certainly have my work cut out for me in terms of the Elements of the Soul, but we still have about half of the summer left to take care of everything. I think this is very manageable, but it does mean that I'm going to stop exploring the Kukurbit until I've sort of digested all of the remaining works. Although it would be nice to be able to catalog the remaining books just so I can sort of plan things out for myself. But that's a rough, kind of a rough plan for what we're going to be doing for the rest of the week. As always, thank you very much for watching. I never want to take an audience for granted, and I know, a lot of you have been sticking with this series, even though it's much longer than other people who played Book of Hours, particularly not getting to an ending. But there are some things we can do to speed things along, but it is very nice. I don't feel this is a game that you gulp down. I think this is a game that you sip, and I appreciate that there are a number of you who are on board enough with that to stick with me. So again, it's appreciated. I will see you all on Wednesday. Tuesday is still a day off for me, but when Wednesday comes around, we'll be picking up this playthrough. Until then, take care.